Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio. This is the Age Factor with your host, Hurricane Age. New day, new show. An awesome topic that we need to really take a little bit of time and a moment to discuss. And my guest today is going to help us go through it and with some solutions that she has perfected to help people deal with this. And this is the topic of PTSD, trauma, and it's going to get deeper than that. But my guest today is Anissa Hudak, and she is a Reiki master. She is a yoga therapist, and she has an unbelievable story, and that's all I'm going to leave it at. And so, Anissa, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I know we've been waiting for this moment for a minute, but we're here, and I know we're going to deliver something unique to our audiences because I've covered a lot of topics on PTSD and different angles, but not the angle that we're going to talk about today, specifically your story. And also, we'll get into the yoga and as a therapy method to tackle some of the PTSD and trauma that people may I guess, have in their lives. And sadly, a lot of people do get traumatized somehow, and there is that aftermath of trauma that lingers along. And some people can handle it, some people can't. Sometimes people take drastic measures and even take their lives, unfortunately. And the more we do educate people on how to potentially navigate, this, first of all, we'd like them to avoid, hopefully, any trauma if we can. And if prevention is everything, preventative was always good, but things happen. Life is crazy, and there's a lot of bad things that can happen to anyone, anytime. So, Anissa, let's talk about your story and what got you into what you do today.
Well, I am unfortunately, I know trauma really well, like pretty intimately. I am the daughter of a Vietnam vet. We didn't know at the time. However, my dad struggled with PTSD all of his life, from the war. I am also a 2-time rape survivor. My husband also was active duty military, and he did 3 deployments over in the sandbox, Afghanistan and Iraq. And so I know PTSD. I know trauma, unfortunately. My life is kind of like a really bad Hallmark movie, except my dog didn't die. And you have to be able to laugh about it at some point because, the humor helps.
I do admire that. I mean, just the brief introduction right now, people are probably watching and listening like, what the hell is going on? I mean, you just listed almost every single bad scenario that people can entertain or at least think of, right? You got war. Trauma is definitely something that comes with war, regardless who. Now you, as a child of a veteran, that's one, because if your parents have PTSD or any type of trauma, there's a reflection on how they behave, and so that's one. Then you've married into military, therefore you had to endure that part of it. And 3 tours is no fun. Definitely not. When we're talking Afghanistan and or Iraq, those are like some hot spots that people were literally. I mean, there's a lot of suffering, from those experiences. And then you just added a little bit to the fire there when you stated that you are 2 times rape. I mean, it's I don't even know what to say to that one. I mean, it's rape that's another crazy element of life that shouldn't happen, but it does happen, and sadly, and people watching and listening, you have to listen in today because we're gonna get some real advice, maybe signs, things to look for, and or places to avoid, people to avoid, whatever the case may be, and or if that ever happens, whatever it is, we need to make sure that we know what to do and who to seek help with, and what measures we take to prevent any further issues, or specifically dealing with the trauma that comes with some tragedies such as those things that you just mentioned. So Anissa, let's talk about the story. The first thing is about your father. I mean, first of all, Vietnam was a brutal war, and people have seen atrocities there. And so, if someone came back from there, there's definitely going to be some level of trauma, and depending what that level is, it's going to be in your face. So you as a child, what were some of the things that you've experienced, from your dad?
I didn't understand some of the things that he did, some of the things that he said. Growing up in my house, Vietnam was like a dirty word. We could curse all we wanted. However, Vietnam was not a word we were allowed to utter, and we knew not to go there. We were not allowed to ask any questions. Um, it was just, and if we did, watching him physically, how it physically even affected him. Not even, obviously, we didn't know emotionally, but just his physical presence, there was such a change in it. We knew that that was something we were not to go into. And, I feel really terrible. My dad, in probably the last 10 years, finally got some real help. And what a change. I was so blown away by the change it has made just in the last 10 years. And I mean, we're talking about a man who's now 80. And, this happened when he was so very young, and he carried this with him for all of these years. He actually sat down one day and told me what happened, what really caused the PTSD. And I was blown away because that was something we never discussed. And for him to feel that he could sit down and open up and talk about it, I felt very honored. Now I understood. I understood a whole lot more, not only as a clinician, but also as his daughter, that little girl who saw what I saw growing up, and also as a human being. So it was really cathartic. I'm really happy that he is continuing to get help, and hopefully one day he'll have peace.
Well, we hope so, and for everyone that's suffered some level of PTSD, I mean, we want and hope that they all find peace, hopefully sooner than later. But it is an interesting fact that you said that he's taken all these years. I mean, Vietnam was way back then, and recently you said only 10 years ago, last decade, you've seen some gradual improvement, but that whole period of time, I mean, when you hold something inside, I mean, it's gotta burn, it's gonna have a direct impact on everybody around you. So what are some of the things that you've noticed from him, and as someone that's immediately been affected with this?
Um, you know, like I've noticed with my clients, it's all pretty much the same. Sleep disturbances, nightmares, um, lack of mood management. He angered really quickly, and a lot of my clients do. Maybe making not some of the best decisions. A lot of impulsivity. Oh boy, I can't say that word. Being very impulsive. Woo!
Impulsive, that's it.
Woo! Yeah, couldn't get that out.
Impulse driven, that's it.
There we go. Thank you. So, not unlike a lot of my clients. And when I started seeing it in my clients, I was like, hey, I know this pattern. I know what's happening here. I've seen this before. And so, those are some of the things that I noticed.
Well, I mean, just a curious question. As a child, I mean, was there any aggression towards you or your family at the time, or no?
No,
So,
absolutely not. Thankfully, absolutely not. He never physically abused us or anything like that. Verbally, yes. However, he took the brunt of it. He really did. And all of those men and women who came back from that time, they were doing such horrible things. They saw and experienced such horrible things there. And then they came home, unfortunately, to a country that didn't welcome them back, that didn't say thank you. And that just added such another layer to it. And it's disgusting. And however, they all have said, we're never going to let that happen again. And they have tried to do everything possible to connect with the new veterans, to make sure that they know that their service is appreciated and that they're not alone. And I think that that's amazing that such a group of people said, yeah, it was quite frankly shitty, but we're not going to let this happen again. And they welcomed this new group of veterans in with just open arms.
On this, I mean, the Vietnam War was a controversial war, and so therefore it was just a lot of hype about it. And as you said, it was not the welcome that you'd get from a hero welcome, as we say, from when we come back from a war or from any type of, I guess, victory. In this case, it was just a chaotic one. And you're right, people died, people saw atrocities there, and then, they just suffered and they came, and that was it. And I mean, I've actually met, a few veterans myself that are from that particular war, and I even interviewed, I believe someone that did go through that stage, and it is a tough one. And you're right, it's very difficult because there we've had more veterans since then, and a lot of wars since then. I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of war, period and out. I mean, I don't think there's anything good that comes with war. And sadly, I get, to defend yourself is one thing, but war in general, it's, like that song, was it good for? Absolutely nothing. That was a song that came out, I think, at that same time. So just sadly, that's I think that's probably one of the things that kind of not made the veterans feel good about how they did and why they went there, and again, there's politics, there's all stuff with the war that comes along, but unfortunately people suffer one way or the other. You suffer if you are in a particular time frame. I mean, we don't even go to war and we see stuff sometimes and hear about it and we get traumatized and get we feel that. So imagine if you were really there. Now, so the good news is he was not, I mean, obviously I get it. You get very easily agitated. You can raise your voice. You can get a little bit abrupt. And so there's nothing you can do to that. And that's actually the lowest, spectrum of anger, right? So luckily that was good. Now you did go on and married someone who was also military. And that was a choice. So again, I'm not even gonna go there. I mean, what got you into it? But I guess love is what it is, right? It happens, right? And you did. But was your husband also subjected to any PTSD throughout his tours, or he was fine? I mean, I know some people went on tours, but they didn't see a lot of action. But some others really, some again, they saw the bad stuff and got involved into some crazy things, and therefore they do have those nightmares and the same reaction that you mentioned first. Anything you want to shed a light on that?
Well, love is blind and dumb. Um,
You're listening to that, folks, right? So be careful out there.
I have no idea what my parents were thinking letting me at 23 get married. I have no idea. But there I was. And of course, we were not in war at that time. And so it was just kind of playing military until 9/11 happened. And I was 7 months pregnant. And I'm sitting there wondering, oh my God, is my husband leaving me for I don't know where to go? I don't know where for I don't know how long. Is he going to meet his child? I mean, all of a sudden we weren't playing military anymore. Now, I knew that he and the troops were really incredibly well trained. And so I felt comfortable and confident that, he and his men would be okay. He would make sure of that. However, there's still this, oh my gosh, this is real now. All of a sudden it became very real. And actually what happened was he had, of 9/11, he had actually put himself into a position where he was away from troops for 6 years. And so at the end of the 6 year mark, we were still in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, he's like, I got to get in the war. Like, I got to get, or else my career is going to be done if it isn't already. And so he actually made a deal with the devil to be inserted somewhere, and I can't say where, doing things that I can't tell you what.
That's fine.
Even though it was so many years ago, I still can't really talk about it. And, yeah, he was gone for 3 years out of 5. As when he came back the first time, within 24 hours, we knew he was leaving again within 12 months. And that kept going. So he was gone a year, back a year, gone a year, back a year, gone another year, and then finally returned. So within 5 years, he was gone 3. And when you have that kind of a rotation, you never fully unpack, because you're leaving again. You never fully integrate back into society, back into your home, because you've got one foot still left there. And that took a toll. And yes, and I would say a little less of him came back every time. And so, yeah, we had to deal with some things that were not pretty. We still deal with things that are not pretty.
Well, I think one of the luckiest pieces is that your work helps people. So therefore, you're able to potentially mitigate some of that. And so, I mean, I know maybe a client is one thing, your husband could be something totally different. So what advice would you tell people right now that are listening, watching? I mean, either spouses or even people that are enlisted right now, enlisted in some sort of armed forces right now. Because, I mean, the world is we're at edge right now. Everything is, on edge, right? So we don't know what's going to happen, in the next few months or days, because everything is a little bit of, question mark right now. But what would you tell people right now, if you were to give advice on this matter?
These men and women go to far off, distant places to war, and they want to keep it there. They want to keep it off of our shores, and I understand that. However, if they don't address their PTSD, they bring that war into their homes unknowingly. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. As much as these men and women want to protect their family and their loved ones, if they don't address their PTSD, they bring that war zone right home into their home. And so if you're sitting there and, you're dealing with PTSD, even if you don't know it, but something's not quite right, go get help. Your career is not going to suffer. Your military career, it's not going to suffer. They would much rather you be stronger by addressing this than being the weak link. If you don't address it, you are weak, frankly, because you're too afraid. If you think going to war is bad, dealing with your PTSD is probably worse. And that's what they think. Frankly, once they get over it and they deal with it, because you never get over it, but once they get over that hump and they have more of a manageable aspect of it, it's life is so much better. Life is enjoyable. Folks who are dealing with PTSD generally aren't enjoying their life. It doesn't have to be like that. And, saddling up to go to war is one thing, but saddling up to deal with your own demons, that's a whole other war. Those are the strong ones.
Thank you, Anissa. Well, I mean, there are a lot of services. There are a lot of, resources available, I believe. And I know I've met a lot of people that participate in different programs and so on and so forth, or they're doing things to support, the veterans that come back and hopefully. But as you said, there's a couple of things. Some people don't know they have PTSD, or at least they ignore it, or they almost are in denial that they have such a thing because it is difficult to accept that I am something's wrong with me, right? I mean, that's just all of us as humans. It's no one wants to admit that there's something wrong here. We just want it's all the world, but eventually it gets to a point where it's just too overwhelming. You mentioned some of the key elements, lack of sleep, nightmares. I mean, the closest that everybody can actually relate to this, you watch movies, they do depict that well enough, where people cannot sleep, they see faces and they get, night sweats and all the stuff. But I mean, it's depiction, it's movie drama, but it gets you at least the idea of what it is. But no one can really know what it is unless you've gone through it yourself. So it's a tough thing to even pill to swallow, and it does take a toll on the family members because they're the ones that are first hands, facing this particular dilemma of this particular person. Because a person leaves, another person comes back, literally. Because I don't think, I mean, it's the same person, but they have something different about them. You mentioned something about demons. I guess there's an added value there that actually changes some of the parameters when they're back, and it's not easy to deal with it. And again, people have to be open to seeking help, as you said, and doing what's necessary to remove that. And again, I think all the therapy in the world, is great, but it is a difficult process, and it requires a lot of willness, and will from these people to actually get better. So now that we've talked about that, and I think we've spent enough time on that. Now let's talk about your case. I mean, you said it well in the beginning. Like I have been surrounded with PTSD all my life, but then you added another one. I mean, you yourself experienced some events, the tragic events that actually could, and I'm assuming there was some level of that as well with you when you've gone through this process, right? Of rape, which is, I mean, it's tragic. So would you care? I know there's some things you can tell us, some things you can't tell us, but just tell us a little bit about what you can and how did you deal with it yourself, and then we'll transit into the therapy part and you becoming the master of yoga therapy here and Reiki, stuff. Let's talk about that.
Well, the first time was I was 18. It was date rape. I was dating a guy, and things were going great. And then in the middle of us being intimate, it was not so great. And I said, no. And I said, you're hurting me. At which point he proceeded to continue. And he actually got off on the fact that he was hurting me. And, there are people who enjoy that. And as long as it is mutually consensual and there are safety words and protocols in place, there is nothing wrong with that. However, that was not the situation. And I was left thinking, okay, what just happened here? And it's funny because now I run a free Facebook group for women who are survivors. And one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, I don't know if I've been raped or not. And usually when somebody asks me that, I'm already kind of thinking in my head, the answer is yes, but go ahead and tell me what happened. It's funny how a lot of women walk away from situations saying, what just happened here? I know it wasn't right. I know I don't feel great, but is it really rape? And I can, say that, if at any point it goes from being consensual and safe and loving or enjoyable to something that is not, yes, that is rape.
Well, I think you defined it. The fact that if it's not mutual, it's not agreed upon, and you say no, stop, whatever, that's the end of it. Anything beyond that becomes actually forceful, and therefore that's by definition rape. And But I think that goes back to what I said. It's the denial fact, right? You don't want to accept that it happened, and it's that part of it. And to be honest with you, I mean, I have my personal opinion about those people that do these actions. I mean, for me, they should have the extreme sentences. If the law permits it, I mean, they have to suffer the highest level of punishment so they don't do it unless we learn. But I mean, sadly, there's a system, and sometimes these people don't get away with it too. So, but it is out there. It is happening. It happens every day, and there are victims on a regular basis. And people have to be just aware and avoid hopefully any of this stuff. And I mean, there's a lot of discussion. I mean, if you talk to someone that's religious, there's a whole level of scrutiny that comes along with that. But when you have, I mean, today's society, it's not as religious as it had been historically. So therefore, there's that open relationship early on, and therefore these things do happen. And by the way, they happen not only at a young age; it can happen at any time. And I'm sure the groups that you've created, you see women at all ages that where this is happening. And again, it should not be happening. There's no such thing as forceful stuff, and if it is, to your point, it's not right, and it needs to be addressed. So what are some of the things that well, first, you've gone through that. How did you, I guess, deal with it? I mean, as a young girl, I mean, I mean, you had to speak to someone about it, or maybe you didn't, and that's another part. If people don't speak about it, that's where it stays inside, and it drives them nuts. And obviously, I'm sure there's going to be some level of craziness that comes with that in terms of how you talking about nightmares, talking about all these things can be, some of the, I guess, ramifications of the aftermath. So how did you deal with it?
Well, I went to my mom and I said, I've had this experience and I really think I need to talk to somebody.
Right
And
thing.
she did not believe me. She said, "What did you do?" Uh, huh? She said, "But, I don't believe you. However, if you really feel like you need to go talk to somebody, we'll get you set up." And I did. And I did talk to someone. Now, in hindsight, I think, and this is something that you actually spoke of earlier, I don't think she could wrap her brain around that. I thought it was so heinous. She couldn't believe that that had happened. And so it was easier to cast doubt than to accept it and be supportive. Um, and actually my mom passed away earlier this year, and that was one of the things that I actually came to peace with. I didn't realize that that had bothered me, that the lack of support. And yet when I really sat down and thought about it as a mother, that must have been so horrific to hear. She probably couldn't wrap her brain around it. Now, she did help me get help and seek someone to talk to. So I think in her own way, she was trying to be supportive. However, and so to other survivors out there, those in your life might not support you the way you need them to, or you want them to, or you even expect them to. And it could be that it's just so awful, they can't wrap their brains around it. And now there are people who just aren't that way and just aren't supportive. And, I get that too. However, to get back to your question, yes, I spoke with someone. And, the great thing about talk therapy is that you hear yourself say it. And so it really kind of gets into, your conscious mind is going through it. And, but that's all that happens. You're left into like this state of awareness. And, it's also in the body. Trauma is trapped in the body as well. And I didn't know any of this at that time. In fact, this was barely even spoken about. And so I just went on living my life. Yes, I got confirmation. Yes, this did happen. Yes, this is what it was. Okay. and now you move on. And over the years, there were things that I did that I didn't realize were because of my PTSD. And it really crawled into the nooks and crannies of my life. And, if I go out at night, I make sure that I park under a light. I check my back seat before I get into my vehicle. I always, as I'm walking to my car, I'm always looking underneath to make sure nobody's under my car. Or I go out with someone so I'm not alone. There were movies I couldn't watch. A rape scene, I couldn't watch that. No, never. There were just things that I just realized it was because of the PTSD. I was living my life within these parameters, and the PTSD was guiding it.
Anissa, first thing, condolences for your mom. Yeah. So that but I love what you said that you've made peace with the idea because, but again, I mean, I hear you and I can see her. I mean, I'm assuming you're a mother. Is that fact? Do you have kids? Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
you as a mother, you feel it. It's different. You know about your kids. I'm a father, so I know that if my kids come to me with something, I mean, I'm gonna react to it. But you're right. It is no one is planning to hear that kind of news, right? And so everybody reacts differently, and someone can go crazy. Someone can just like, oh, there's not, no, I don't believe you. Someone can say like, well, let's go take care of business. It could be all kind of things, right? But I mean, she was almost in shock, and it is sometimes, factual that people may not get their head around, a fact that that's my child that's been, a victim of this, crime, and it's not something you want to just like accept, and subconsciously you might just decline that idea, period.
Mm-hmm.
And in your case, you did eventually get to the point that it happened, so you realized that it was, but there was no, I guess, aftermath. There was no reaction to it. It was just that it ended there, but it didn't end there because in your mind now it's a fear factor and it stayed with you. And every single element that's gonna be of close enough to any danger situation, such as being alone or whatever, where you can get overwhelmed, then you basically in this trauma, mode, and that's a problem. And I by the way, I think people watching or listening right now, everybody has some level of trauma in their life or something, right?
Absolutely.
I think we all have something that fears or phobias, and those phobias come from something that happened to us when we were at a certain point of our life, and we never faced those phobias, and therefore they stay with you, and they could be at different levels of extreme, but either one of them can be a problem. In your case, you were dealing with them the best you could, so you just got to put all these forms and systems in place to actually kind of prevent it, by default. I mean, that was your reaction system. That was your treatment to yourself. And a lot of people would actually go through that because there's the other part. I mean, I'm not sure how, the timing is also different. I mean, talking to, for example, a psychiatrist or a therapist wasn't always, and it's still not, the easiest way. And I can give you a good story. I mean, we have an actual live show where the world-renowned psychiatrist, and we ask people to come on the show. And we barely get someone on. It sounds like people are afraid to actually ask questions, yet there's so many people that are going through trauma and things that it'll be easy to actually ask questions to get some of that. But it is still frowned upon to actually ask someone for help, or especially when it has to do with, emotional or physical, trauma. And it's people are just not able to face that.
It's crazy to me that you could have cancer. And what do? Do you stick your head in the sand? No, you go and you get help. You have a whole team of doctors. So if you have a brain injury such as trauma, PTSD, that's what it is. It's a brain injury, believe it or not. Why wouldn't you go and get a team of doctors to help you heal this brain injury? I don't understand why folks, and part of it is the Western medical system that we have in place here. They have dissected every part of our bodies, and we have all these physical things, and then we've got all the brain stuff. And the two shall never meet. well, guess what? I got to, this is a lightning rod kind of a situation. Guess what? We are one being. All of the parts are in one place. You got to deal with the whole bag. You can't just dissect it out.
Well, it's real. I mean, you're right. I mean, the mind and the body are one and the same. One affects the other. Your body's weak, your brain is not functioning. Your brain is weak, your body's not going to function. Your mind is not there, you're not going to be correct, and therefore you're going to do things that are going to affect your body. Whether easy one, you have trauma and stuff. People binge eat, do stuff. They gain weight. They lose, hope in life, and things happen badly. And you're right, it's one. But you said it best. The idea is that the brain is important and you need to treat it. And if you have a trauma and it's hurting, you need to find someone to help you guide through it. You can't do it alone because we're not expert in this. I mean, there are people that know how to do it. Now, luckily, you took the route of learning how to be one to help, which, by the way, I have to say, I always say this in many, of the shows because I admire people who have gone through a tough time, whatever that is, and they took the route where they don't want other people to suffer, and therefore they make it their own journey and mission to give back and help others, not to get to the point. I mean, you're here on the show to do exactly that, but you're doing the work out there to help people avoid or at least prevent if and potentially possible, but that's one way. But if not, at least helping them navigate and get better in the short or long term. I'm not sure, so we'll talk about that. So thank you for doing that. So when did you get to really make the call? I want to be the one to help people.
Well, it wasn't at first. That's for gosh darn sure. I didn't even know I was on this journey when I started this journey. The first thing I did was I became a Reiki master. And the reason I did that was because it was we were gearing up for my husband's second deployment. And we knew we were about a month out. And I said, all right, we got to tell our boys now. We've known all year, but the Army, they can change things. We didn't want to tell them right away. So we are a month out from you leaving. We know it's a sure thing now. We need to tell our boys. And so we sat them down and we told them. And 3 days later, our oldest son started with uncontrollable diarrhea. Could not control his bowels. We took him to the brigade surgeon. We had all kinds of tests run. We were doing everything possible. And the brigade surgeon came back and said, there is not anything wrong with him. And in fact, I can't even prescribe anything. He has a nervous stomach. He's upset about you leaving. And with that, at that point, my husband's walking out the door to go. And I'm left with this poor kid who can't control his bowels. I also was dealing with migraines. Both boys actually were having a tough time with sleeping. And I started doing some research online, and Reiki kept coming up. The word Reiki kept coming up. And I finally said, okay, I think somebody's trying to tell me something. I should look into this. I went and I found a Reiki master in Kansas City, which is about 2 hours from where we live. And of course, before anybody's going to touch my kid, they're going to do it to me first because, I don't know what this is, And I went and I had, just a little, right?
Yeah.
And I went and I had a treatment done, and I was blown away. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, my child needs this. And so the Reiki master, actually, she said, well, why don't you do this for him? Why don't you become a practitioner? You can learn this. I was like, well, my gosh, sign me up. And 2 weeks later, I was in my first and second level of Reiki. A year later, I became a master, and I've been a Reiki master for over 10 years. I used it extensively for both the boys while my husband was deployed and even when my husband came back. Again, I never really had any thought that I was doing this for the greater good. I was just trying to get my kid through the day without soiling his pants, which it did work, which was amazing and beautiful. So then I guess about 2 or 3 years later, one of the things that I loved was yoga, and I found it very grounding for me. And if I was going to do Reiki on a more grander scale and actually open up, a clinic so people could come in and whatever, I needed yoga in my life. I needed that to help ground me. And I hated being on anybody else's schedule.
I hear you.
So I was like, well, why don't I learn? Like, I'll take the first level of yoga and I'll learn how to keep myself safe on a mat and I'll just do it myself. Well, I realized in that class that for me, yoga was a gift and that I wasn't teaching yoga. I was just sharing this amazing gift. And within a month after me finishing that class, I had 2 job offers. And I said, well, I think the universe is trying to tell me something. So I started working as a yoga instructor. And I started taking, a couple more teacher trainings here and there. And I kind of got the bug and I really enjoyed the people who I was with in these classes. And I just was having a really lovely time. And so I went to like a conference where you get to take several classes in a week. And one of the classes they were offering was for PTSD. And I was like, I live in the belly of the beast here. I mean, we live in a huge retirement community of military, active duty military right by Fort Riley. I could bring this back and be of service to all of my community. I should do this. And then I got into the class and I was about halfway through the first day and I said, oh, crap. The first person I got to work on is right here. It was then that I realized how PTSD had really, as I said, crawled into the nooks and crannies of my life and was holding me back. Things that I just thought that I did because I was quirky. It wasn't because I was quirky. It was because I had PTSD, for God's sakes. And that is what really blew the lid off of all of this when I started really looking at it and how I was living my life. I said, oh my goodness, this is really controlling me more than I've got control over it. And I didn't like that. And so it started this journey of self-discovery, self-healing. It was really wonderful. And then at some point I said, all of these people around me can utilize this. And I need to share this. And so I started working for the WTB, which is the Wounded Soldier Battalion here at Fort Riley. And I would work with not only the soldiers, and these soldiers had, you name it, physical ailments or ailments that you couldn't see. I had amputees. I had guys literally connected to IV poles. I had amputees. I had folks in wheelchairs, crutches, you name it. And then I had the folks who had the unseen bruises. And I worked with them for over 3.5 years. And it was one of the most amazing experiences. I also got the opportunity to actually start my own practice here in Manhattan, Kansas. I had a yoga studio, and I was working with private clients at that point as well. And I just decided that, as much as I enjoyed working with the soldiers, and they were great, I loved the soldiers. They were so much fun. Getting to work with specifically women who were like me, that's really what filled my well. Watching a woman being able to make a shift on a mat, priceless. And so that's really where I went ahead and really geared my entire practice to, was women who were like me.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of story how it all started. I mean, not what I thought, but you know what? There's always a reason for things to happen. And I mean, you're right. I mean, you as a mother, you felt that you needed to help your children. You were looking and seeking what could be, and then you wound up the one that's doing the healing, and then eventually you get basically yourself into this world of greatness of healing thing, and you did that. So just one thing for our audiences, if you don't mind. I know we talk about Reiki, like, everybody knows about it. Can you just share? I mean, you and I may know about it, but for our audiences, there might be people like maybe this is the first time they hear about it, or at least they don't understand how it works. And you being a master on it, how does that journey look like, and what do you do as a Reiki master? And then I do want also to talk about, because everybody thinks yoga is just those positions that you see in the street. I mean, that's about it, right? But this is yoga therapy. And if you can, just elaborate on the difference between standard yoga and what you do as a yoga therapy, concept.
Sure. Okay. So Reiki is so yummy. Oh, it is.
That's a commercial right there.
Reiki is a Japanese healing touch therapy. Now, you don't necessarily have to touch someone. I like to. I feel like my gift is better when I'm actually able to touch someone. And what it does is it really helps the person relax and drop down into a place, pretty much into the theta waves, where self-healing occurs. We all have the capacity to heal ourselves, each and every one of us. And it allows your body to relax enough to drop down into that place so you can do some self-healing. Now, sometimes that includes taking a nap on the table. That's totally cool. It's kind of like being on a chiropractic table, except you don't get adjusted. You might feel tremendous warmth. You might feel very cold. It is whatever your body needs. And what's even stranger is that you might feel tremendous warmth, and yet my hands might be ice cold, or vice versa. And so there's no rhyme or reason to it. It is absolutely lovely. It is incredibly relaxing. And if you've never had a treatment done, run, don't even walk, run and go get one done, because it is just so amazing.
I did get an offer to have an actual session, and I still haven't done it yet. So now you're really giving me a little bit of a motivation to actually, take my offer.
Oh, you must. It is just so delightful, really. And like I said, some people fall asleep on the table, and that's totally cool.
It's probably
Again,
gonna be me.
Sleeping is a form of healing, and that's okay. All kinds of things happen on the table. I've had people scream. I've had people cluck like a chicken. I've had people cackle because they're laughing so hard. I've had people who talk the whole time. I have people who don't talk the whole time. What's really interesting is that if you are on the table and you feel the sensation to either belch or pass gas, that is an excellent thing. That means that your body is becoming aligned and it's working the way it should. And so I tell people, listen, if you have to pass gas, I'm a mom. I have heard it, smelled it, seen it all before. Like, you will not offend me. let it go, because that is your body actually getting into alignment, and that is a good thing. I have people who sneeze uncontrollably on my table. Can't figure out why, but that's what their body needed to do. It is delightful. It is lovely. And if you are dealing with something trauma, PTSD related, and you don't feel like you're quite ready to go talk to someone, this is a great place to start. You do not take off your clothes. You have all your clothes on except for metal. Your practitioner will probably ask you to take off your shoes, belt, watch, anything like that. But otherwise, you remain totally with your clothes on. You can get a blanket, you can get a pillow. I mean, it is wonderful, but it's a great place to start on your healing journey if you don't feel like you're quite ready to go talk to somebody.
Like a relaxation session. I mean, really just like a Zen moment there.
It is. It really is like a very incredible Zen moment. And I highly, highly recommend.
Listen, I mean, you're an expert. This is what drives you. So I'm sure you see I can see the excitement just from you talking about it, because you know what it is. I mean, for someone who has not experienced it, probably. I mean, for me, very a good example. I love cruising. I talk about cruising like it's like the only way you can vacation, right? And when you know something, or like martial arts, that's my life. So I talk about it like, in real, excitement. And that's really what I'm getting from you here, because the energy that's coming out, like this is like the best thing that can happen. So, I will definitely have to try this, because I can use that. I think we all could use a level where we can get to that alignment, with ourselves. And, I mean, whether it's meditation, yoga, things, I mean, I think all this stuff aligns. And these are ancient things. I mean, you talk about this is Japanese. This is not something that's recent. This is,
over 100 years.
Alternative stuff, that's been in play, and people have been using these techniques and these methodologies to actually get better and heal better. So that's the Reiki. And then what's the difference between the yoga concept, which is standard, just stretching positions, versus yoga therapy, and how does that, I guess, make a difference in somebody's PTSD, case?
Okay. Well, so yoga is made up of 8 different parts. The positions, that's only one of them.
That's all we know.
Okay. So, but if you look at the world of yoga as a big pie and you split it down the middle, one side of it is fitness-based yoga. And so you have, Ashtanga and Bikram and co-ed naked hot yoga and all kinds of aerial yoga and all kinds of wonderful fun stuff, right? And that's really based on moving your body. Are you going to have a Zen moment? Sure, absolutely. You're going to have some Zen moments in there. But it's more about moving the body and really having fun in that area. Now, when you look at yoga therapy, generally, as a yoga therapist, we kind of pick a group of people we want to work with. And so there is, yoga therapy for cardiac rehab, for cancer, for MS, CP, CF, seniors, you name it, arthritis. And we work with that group of people to help them reach goals. I happen to work with people who have PTSD, trauma-related issues, and TBIs, traumatic brain injuries. And so, because PTSD is a brain injury, people don't realize that, but that's really what it is. So what we're able to do is really connect people back with their body. When trauma occurs and PTSD sets in, the brain and the rest of the body are not on the same page. They stop talking to one another. With the yoga therapy, we are able to get the brain and the body to start talking again and to get realigned. The more and more you do it, the more and more it becomes aligned. And the more often, the longer it stays aligned. It's kind of like chiropractic care. You got to keep going to keep it in place. And then the more and more it stays in place, you can
So,
space out your appointments then.
mhm.
That's what this is like. The more and more we can get your brain and your body on the same page, the longer it'll stay together. And then, you start working again like a whole human being, not just parts,
Well, that's the ideal, right? So that's what we
right?
want.
Yes. And so that's the difference between yoga and yoga therapy.
Well, thank you. So I mean, essentially, I think between Reiki and yoga, if you do all this stuff, I think we all can be better. We can get fixed in a lot of ways. I think we all are going through life, and you and I, we had the brief discussion before about like how we're doing. We always busy, but busy is good, and if you're doing the right stuff, what you love is always good. But there's always things that happen to us in a day-to-day basis. At a certain point or another, it does get an impact on us, and we're not talking about the extreme case of PTSD or all the other severe cases, but even at the lower level, I think we can still use some level of it and just to relax and get aligned properly. So this is something that I think recommended to everyone that's watching or listening, that if you have access to it and you can have access to it, to potentially do it. Now, if you've experienced anything close to PTSD, this is definitely something that would be a good way or in line of where you need to be going. Unless you really extremely need more advanced help, and I guess at that point would be like psychiatry, psychology type of level. But that's another discussion. I mean, again, by the way, and that's my question to you: do you even need that if you actually go through a full spectrum of treatment, and sessions in the Reiki and yoga therapy?
Yes. And because PTSD is there are over 75 different symptoms that make up PTSD. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has all 75. It's kind of like a Chinese menu, two from column A, three from column B. And, but it takes somebody really well equipped to look at you as a whole person and say, okay, you're having night terrors and you have IBS and you've got skin irritation and you've got this and you're doing that. This is all because of this one thing. And it really takes somebody very sharp to look at you as the whole person, because it's physical symptoms, there's emotional behavioral symptoms that show up. There's all kinds of things that show up within this 75 plus range. So diagnosing PTSD is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And then you need different techniques to counter different types of symptoms. So yes, is talking good? Absolutely. Medication. You might need some medication. It might not be forever. It could be short term, but meds are not a bad thing. And then working your body, moving your body in certain ways, whether it's just Reiki or not just Reiki, whether it's Reiki, maybe it's having a massage, maybe it's chiropractic care, maybe it's martial arts, maybe it's not even yoga therapy, maybe it's martial arts. For me, as much as I loved martial arts, it made me very aggressive. All 4'8" and a half of me. And I was friends actually with a gal who was a 4-time world champion Tang Soo Do. And she was amazing. And I picked a fight with her one night. I was in martial arts for 3 months and then told never to come back. So one night we were in the dojang and I picked a fight with her, and she said to me, and she's a dear friend of mine. You have to understand, I've known her 30 plus years. She's a dear friend of mine. And this was back in the day. And she said, I will kick your ass if you do that again. And I did it again.
Oops.
And she kicked my ass. To me, martial arts was too aggressive. I couldn't handle it. I needed the yoga to actually help relax me. There are some people who need the martial arts, who it works great for them, and they are able to do the same thing as we're able to do with the yoga. Some people like to run. You know, it doesn't have to necessarily be yoga therapy. It's about finding what meets that need. Now, is there a physical aspect to it? Yes, we do something. We work with certain muscle groups that help to release the trauma. Trauma is stored in certain muscle groups in the body. You're going to release that in martial arts. You're going to release that if you're running. Kickboxing, you're going to release that. If you are cross stitching, you're probably not going to release from that muscle groups. So no, cross stitching is off. No knitting, nothing like that. However, if you're moving your body like that, yes, you will physically release the trauma from the body as well as getting the mind and the body back online together. So it's very important. I find yoga to be the answer for me. I find yoga to be the answer for a lot of my clients, but it's not the answer for everyone. And so you really have to go out there and find what meets that need. And that's creating your treatment team. Again, if you have cancer, you're going to have a team of doctors working with you. In this situation, you have to create your own treatment team to help you. And that's going to be somebody to talk to, somebody to prescribe to you, somebody to help you move your body, maybe somebody to, do massage or whatever it is. But you need to create your own treatment team.
Oh, well, listen, I mean, it's so clear that we need a level of this. And to your point, I mean, there's a lot of things. It's not one thing that is, as per definition of PTSD. I think you got to know what drives people and what actually is the triggers for these things. And not everybody's going to have the same thing, but ultimately, you mentioned over 70, types of things that are wrong, and therefore, I think each one of us may have one or two of these, if not more. And so that means we all need some assistance. And you're right. I mean, like for me, martial arts was an actual anti-bullying for me when I was a kid, and it helped me, deal with that and build the confidence and the discipline. And you get to a point where you're not aggressive, you're not going to fight because you understand the stuff. And by the way, we have a joke in martial arts. The worst, opponents you have are the white belts or the newbies because they're just aggressive. Because you know what it is, they just take it like I want to prove you that you can't. I can handle you. But the thing is that technique always goes over, all that. And you only learn that in time when you get like really whooped a little bit a couple of times. You be, okay, I get my lesson. I'm cool. I want to listen this time. But it's funny that you said that. But it really is. But you're right. It's not for everyone. And but I think the concept of what you said about the relaxation, the yoga, different movements, the whole nine, of the therapy practice, those are all things. And you're right. Someone may need all of them or more of these things, and whatever a combination, but whatever works for you. I think at the end of the day, the idea is that we want people to be better, feel better, live better, and that's all. And to your point, the same way you will treat your body, you want to treat your mind, and that's the thing. You need to get as many tools and resources to get you where you need to be. But what would be a typical time frame to actually for someone to start seeing results? Let's say if they start working with you.
I love this question. Your trauma is as individual as your thumbprint. And so is your healing journey. I've had people who were with me for 3 months and they're like, you know what? I'm doing a lot better. I've had people who've been with me for 3 years and they're still with me. I can't say how long it'll take. Generally, everyone sees a huge difference after the first session because they're like, oh my goodness. It is certainly not what they expect. Everyone thinks that a yoga session is very zen and quiet. And, that is so not my class. And it's actually designed this way scientifically, believe it or not. It is like the Anissa stand-up hour. I'm talking the whole time. And usually it's about food. So we're all like really hungry by the end of the class. It's interactive. The lights are always on. And of course, this is all done by design. I'm not a talk therapist per se. And so I need to keep you present because, when you get quiet and in the stillness, that's where the scary shit lives. I don't want you to go there. So
I
I'm
love
going
it.
to keep you present, but I'm going to have you in your body. You're going to get a whole full body workout and not even realize it. We're going to be talking the whole time. The lights are on. You're not going to be surprised if I generally never leave my mat. Why? Because people don't like it when you walk behind them. I generally don't touch my clients. My clients don't want me to touch them. They don't want anybody to touch them, So again, there are safety protocols put into place in my classes. This is unlike anything you've ever experienced. And with that, they are getting a full body workout. And so you are going to be like, oh, wow, I feel different. And that's great. So they're going to experience that. Most people come back because they had a really good time, whether they laughed or they moved their body, everything was good, And so generally they come back for however long they need to. That's totally cool. But that's on them. They need to decide how long, they want to stay with it.
So essentially, everybody gets to, participate for as long as they need. Then eventually they'll start seeing the results themselves as they participate more longer time. So, I mean, it could be, but the way it sounds, if I get started with this, I mean, why would you go back? If it's good, you're going to continue with it, right? I mean, that's how it is. Basically, you get addicted to something that is nice, and it's a community. It is definitely getting your mind out of the dark places and not being alone in your mind. So it gets you distracted, and so therefore you'll find a way to address things. And I'm sure there's more to this that makes it easier for people to just eventually feel better than that they were. And slowly but surely, as you said, you make progress, slow progress, and then before you know it, things are different because your behavior is different. I mean, it sounds just amazing, like how it is simple yet very effective.
Yes. And that's where, people, they look at me, they're like, this was easy. Yeah, it doesn't have to be hard. Now, in the, on the back end, I've done a lot of the science stuff. I know what I'm doing in order to make you do what you need to do. Yeah, it looks really simple and it's simple for you to do. However, there's a lot that goes into it. And but yeah, it's really up to you as to what your healing journey needs.
All right, so Anisha, you are this work needs to be physical, right? Yet people have to be with you, or do you do any virtual work?
Actually, I do everything virtual now.
Oh, okay.
I live in Manhattan, Kansas, where the livestock outnumber the people. And the cows, they are not really into the yoga, although the bison like it, believe it or not. But the cows, not so much.
I can get the picture right now. Just look out the window. I'm trying to imagine exactly what it looks like outside right now.
Well, right now it's dark.
Oh yeah.
However, and flat.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
Yeah,
How do you deal with the tornadoes? I mean, that's like Tornado Alley, isn't it?
it is Tornado Alley.
Uh,
And I'm from New York. And so, like, my first tornado, I was standing outside watching it. And a friend of mine called and said, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
must
"I'm
be from New
watching
York.
it." They're like, "Get inside."
Yeah. You gotta hide down the cellar. That's it. I mean, yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's amazing how it is down there. But I mean, I've been to Arkansas close enough, and
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Uh, oops. Okay. All right. I've been to Texas and Arkansas, so I mean, I was close enough, but not close, I guess. Borderline.
It's all the same once you get past the Mississippi. I'm totally convinced. However, so yes, to answer your question, I am totally online. I really wanted to be able to reach more people. And like I said, there's more livestock here than there are people.
I mean, this is awesome because you can really help people pretty much everywhere. Anyone that can, connect with you online can get a session, can get the formulas, and I'm sure you show them how it's done. I don't know if there are videos that you share with them or any protocols that they have to follow, but ultimately they register for a course, for not a course, but for a program, and then basically work with you for a period of time to get better, and that's about it. So is there an assessment that it's done in the first place? Like, if I come to you, we got to go over like some basic questions.
Yes,
He's like,
yes.
yeah, I asked a lot of questions.
A regular yoga studio probably would have you sign a waiver of some sort and things like that. This is a little different. There is a questionnaire, a health questionnaire, and we do an assessment, and I need to know certain things. And that way I can really help to address your needs specifically. And so, yeah, there's a little bit more that goes into it. Not much, but
All
some.
right, it is what it is. So I have a question for you. Is that board behind you? I love that message there. Don't trade your authenticity for approval. I love it. I couldn't help it. I mean, I've been reading it all this time. That's pretty powerful stuff. I mean, it's good advice for people. So hey, if you're watching right now, yeah, this is good advice. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, listen, I mean, I know we've just passed out hour here, but this has been real, and it was a powerful discussion talking about PTSD, about rape, and all these things that can happen, and we just have to be vigilant out there. We have to be aware, and we need to seek help, and there are different ways to get help, and this is definitely a way to do this. And you've been doing this for a period of time there, that therefore you can, and you've helped a lot of people. So, folks, we have a resource with us. And again, our network is not only to bring information, but also resources to you. So Anissa is here and she can help anywhere. So it doesn't matter what country, what border. If you speak English, I think you can do it. That's all there is.
Yes, and I actually speak a couple of different languages. So yeah,
Oh,
I mean, there
there
you
you go.
go. There you
So
go.
I try to simplify, but you go beyond me. So that's it. But
Okay, I'm sorry.
no, but that's great. That's great. I mean, that shows that. I mean, you gotta love technology today. I mean, we're basically connected anywhere now. You don't even have to move from a place to actually get the services that you need and the help you need. And that's the other thing. So there are no excuses, folks. If you're suffering, or you have a concern about your health or your mental health specifically, and you feel like you need a resource, there's plenty out there. I mean, I'm telling you, there's like we just can't say I don't know what to do or where to go. There's plenty of places, and again, we're sharing information right now and resource right here. So Anissa, one thing I always leave our folks with is advice from you. So what would be some of the advice to give our audiences right now before we close the show?
Giving up is not an option. You are needed here. You have special gifts that we all need. And so giving up is not an option.
There you have it, folks. There's no reason to. I mean, really, again, there's no excuse. Don't give up. Just there is help, and you will do better. And you have a legacy, you have a mission in this world, and you have to fulfill it. And therefore, you can't just give up on yourself and on life, because life could be beautiful, and it is beautiful. And it's gotta be bumps and all these dark sides and dark roads, but the end there is that light, and you gotta enjoy what it is, and it's worth it. That I mean, I believe in that personally, and I actually enjoy these talks because it keeps me pumped myself, and keeps the positivity all the time. And that's the other thing. I mean, I think what you do does promote positivity and energy, and therefore, if you have those things, and you see the world different, and I think when you do, then you're free. I mean, to roam any way you want, and live a happier life. And here doesn't mean money, because if you really can understand everything and the way life goes, and your body is good, your mind is good, everything else is secondary. I think if even finances can be secondary, because you will know how to handle yourself with or without. So Anissa, this has been real. I had so much fun. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thanks for having me on. I know it was a hot minute for us to get this scheduled, so I totally appreciate it. This was worth the wait.
Listen, we had fun. So one more question. The site, your site, where people can connect with you.
Oh, you asked the hard question.
I know because I know you have an app, but
I
is that
do. I
exact? Yeah.
do. I'm actually in the process. My website is under construction. Don't you hate when that happens? God bless
Oh,
technology. So, you know, traumahealingyoga.com, that's a great place for people to reach out to me. And if they're not able to reach me there, then phoenixwomanhealing.com.
right.
Either one.
So we'll make sure that we have that noted on the description of the show. And now let's talk about your app quickly. So there is an app that you have where people can actually, I guess, connect and get the services. Is
There
that
is.
is that active?
It actually, right now, it is part and parcel with that new website. So, no, it is not available
Okay.
right now, but it will be probably by the end of the year.
All right. It's only a couple of weeks.
I know. I know.
That's exciting. Well, I'm sure it's going to be more improved, and so that's always a good thing.
Yes.
But yeah, so we will make sure that we have the sites on the description so people can connect with you, and then,
Wonderful.
I mean, that's all there is. So Anissa, thank you so much for being with us, and
Thank you.
you're welcome. And folks, I hope you enjoyed today, and we've covered a lot of grounds, and now you're closer to Reiki and yoga therapy than you ever thought. And I think this is something that we all can experience and we should maybe even entertain. So that being said, I'm Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. New day and show, new topic. Bye for now.